I went to an early screening of Marvel's newest film, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Thoughts on the first two movies? I really love the first one. I think it has an excellent sense of humor, while also managing to have deep emotional moments. We quickly grow attached to these characters because of how interesting and sympathetic they are. 3 years later, Volume 2 came out, and it was alright. While not as well focused or as funny as the first one, it still had some good moments, especially the third act, which really saved it for me. Volume 3 took a while to come out, mainly because of Disney firing James Gunn in 2018 for making inappropriate tweets a decade prior. Can you imagine getting called out for inappropriate tweets that you didn't even mean? Can't relate. I can't believe it's already May. His firing kinda ended up being a blessing in disguise though, as it led to him directing an amazing Suicide Squad movie, which would lead to a Peacemaker series, which was probably good. I don't know, I haven't finished it. And he would later end up being the head of DC Studios. Really happy for him. 9 months after Gunn was fired, he was hired back to direct Guardians Volume 3. The entire MCU Spider-Man trilogy was released in between the final two Guardians movies, giving you an idea of how long it took. It comes out this weekend, and I'm not gonna say any spoilers, but let's talk about it and see if it was worth the wait. To get this out of the way, it has a much better balance between humor and emotional storytelling than Volume 2 does. There are a lot of jokes, yes, but they don't take away from the focus of the story. Most of the time, it feels natural rather than forced. Does that mean the humor is good? Well, yes and no. I wouldn't say there are any moments that are downright hilarious, but there are still a few good laughs here and there. Nothing on the level of the Mary Poppins joke from Volume 2. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all! Though there are still some bad ones as well, and sometimes they can drag on a little too long and it can get a little annoying. But the humor isn't the focus this time around. The serious tone is the main focus. It's very much needed here as it deals with Rocket's backstory and how tragic of an event it was. It's really great knowing how he came to be and what he went through before becoming the character we know today. They aren't afraid of getting dark with this backstory, as it features depictions of animal cruelty. It's uncomfortable, but it's meant to be uncomfortable, and it really makes us feel for Rocket in a different way than we did before. Throughout most of the movie, they cut to flashbacks showing us Rocket's past. While they work most of the time, they can sometimes feel lazily placed, like that official clip they released prior to the movie's debut. It's a heartfelt and emotional scene, but it is shown at such an awkward moment in the movie. I gotta give James Gunn credit though for getting us to really care about these other animal characters despite only knowing them for a short time. It's the writing and the performances that make them easy to grow attached to. I like that every character is given something to do. When you have this many characters in your movie, trying to give each of them some kind of importance can be very hard. The movie does it mostly well, like Peter trying to regain his relationship with Gamora. Of course, since this is Gamora from the past, she doesn't know that she and Peter would eventually become a couple. Of course, Peter's attempts aren't doing them any good since he's trying to force it, whereas before, it happened naturally over a gradual period of time through various adventures and getting to know each other more. I was at first worried this would get exhausting to watch and lead to a bunch of cliches. It certainly looked like it was going that route, but the payoff to it was actually quite nice. They really handled it well. I kinda wish we had gotten some more sibling interaction between Peter and Mantis. The times they do interact are pretty wholesome. Nebula isn't boring anymore, so I'm happy about that. Drax and Mantis had a few decent moments, but they can be kinda obnoxious at times. What doesn't help is that they have Nebula call them out on this as if that's supposed to make it any better, but it just makes me even more annoyed since she's correct. I love the holiday special which focused on the two of them, because it was just meant to be simple low-stakes entertainment, and it was pretty funny. Compared to most recent MCU films, the visuals are very good. Most of it actually looks real. None of the Guardians movies have had bad VFX, thankfully. When you look at this and then look back at Quantumania, it's quite hilarious. I didn't review that movie, but I'll just say here that I was not a fan. But even outside the VFX, the action scenes have some very well choreographed fighting, as well as some amazing cinematography. Just like the other two Guardians films, the soundtrack is phenomenal. The song choices fit perfectly with their scenes. Oh, and one of the songs they play is No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which was also used in the Mario movie. That's a weird coincidence. But while the movie does manage to utilize the main team well, it can kinda struggle when it comes to the side characters. Adam Warlock doesn't have much to do aside from setting up the main plot. He's just there to have a couple of action scenes, but isn't given much character. What they do with him as the movie goes on feels very rushed. like they didn't have much of a plan for him, but needed to include him to go through with what they promised in Volume 2. The real villain of the movie is the High Evolutionary, who wants to create a perfect society by turning animals into intelligent beings. That's pretty much the end of his character. Despite a well-acted performance by Despite this guy's well-acted performance, he's kind of a generic villain who barely has a motivation. What he does is arguably one of the worst things an MCU villain has done, and his role does play into Rocket's whole arc since he made him who he is. All that is good for building a villain, I just wish he were a little more memorable. There's also other returning characters like Kraglin and Cosmo the dog who aren't that important until they need to be later on, but how everything comes together in the end really makes it all worth it. We've followed these characters for years, seeing what they've been through, so the decisions that they make are understandable. The emotional weight is strong and impactful because of it. Despite some of their actions not being particularly great, seeing them grow as characters is beautiful. They've come a long way. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a pretty great ending to the trilogy. While not as good as the first one, it has a lot of heart and emotion that makes it a satisfying watch. One of the better MCU projects to come out recently. I can't wait to see what James Gunn does with DC because he has shown multiple times that he knows what he's doing when it comes to creating something special. Volume 3 may not be perfect, but it is a very emotional and fun time.